This is Casual Babble. Good morning, you beautiful individual. Welcome back to the show. My name is BC Babbles, and you're enjoying Casual Babble, the Queen City's live-streamed morning show and podcast, coming to you from Race City, USA. Before we hop in, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're enjoying the show on YouTube, hit the bell. That way you're notified about all future content on the channel. And if you're enjoying the show on Podbean, give us a follow there and go ahead, hop into the chat wherever you're coming from. Say hello and let us know what towns or cities are enjoying the show this morning. And before we get too much further in, let's not forget that we are doing our 7 daily affirmations every single morning on the show now. Let's get through those real quick. So number 1, you are inventive. Number 2, your ideas are meaningful. Number 3, you are valuable. Number 4, you will not be left behind, because you will pave the way. Number 5, you are worthy of love and success. Number 6, you are powerful. And number 7, you are beautiful, and your beauty will transform you. Okay, let's get into this morning. And you know what? I've been contemplating a lot recently about how I want to go about this show, and I think honestly lately I've been trying to make it too structured. I mean, granted, structure is good and everything and whatnot, and structure helps give us an idea of what to aim for, but at the same time I think sometimes I come off just a little bit too robotic for my own good. So I want to avoid that this morning and just kind of talk to you, right? And just kind of think about, what kind of things do I tend to struggle with in the morning. And for instance, it's Monday. Welcome to Monday, by the way, if I didn't say that already. And what do I struggle with on a Monday? Honestly, one of my biggest struggles on a Monday isn't really just deciding whether or not work is going to happen, because sometimes that's the decision. But other times, what I find my biggest question is from Monday, what kind of coffee am I going to choose for this morning so that I can actually exist at work, right? So that I can actually function when I arrive in the office. That's a big question sometimes, because here's the thing, right? When it comes to like the coffee that I'm going to choose for the morning, different factors come into it, right? Partially, it's about the time of the year. We're in November now, and it's getting colder, so typically speaking, one may not choose a colder coffee for their morning, but that's not necessarily here nor there, right? I'll come into a cold morning like in November, and I'm the kind of person who, despite it being November or December, I'm still going to get myself a large frozen coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, because it's a large frozen coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, right? So, what kind of coffee would I choose for this morning? Honestly, it might be a cold coffee. It might be a Frappuccino. Honestly, you might like one of those, what are they called? Like the caramel ribbon crunch Frappuccinos or something like that from Starbucks. Ooh, so good. But again, like at this point, the peppermint syrup should be out at Dunkin' as well. So I would imagine, and I've seen a lot of TikToks about the peppermint coffees at Starbucks, so I'd imagine peppermint's also out at Dunkin' Donuts. So a large peppermint frozen coffee, that would likely be on the table this morning. But also, can't beat a good sweet cream. You can't beat a good latte. Ooh, like a caramel delight. Ooh, so good. So good. Honestly, those are some of my biggest question marks on a Monday. Like, not just deciding whether I'm going to go to work, because again, making that decision, it's part of the morning routine. Like, sorry, boss, on a Monday, me showing up's not necessarily a given, because I'm contemplating that. But if I'm not contemplating that, I'm contemplating my coffee. And I don't know about you, but I will definitely be the one who's a little late to work for the sake of making sure that by the time I arrive to work, there's a coffee in my hand. Like, I've been 10 or so minutes late in the past because I needed to make sure that I had a coffee with me so that when I got into the office, I'm able to operate. Okay? Okay? Because let's be honest, there's functioning that sometimes cannot occur unless the caffeine is entering your system. And that's not always a given. That's why you have to decide the coffee. All right? All right. Now, I do also want to kind of continue some of the conversation we had on Friday regarding, we talked about quiet quitting. There was an article that I shared from entrepreneur.com that talked about quiet quitting and why it tends to happen. And it spoke about it from the manager perspective, but I wanted to speak about it from the employee perspective because it's the employee who oftentimes finds themselves in kind of a quiet quitting mindset. And, we talked about the different things that causes that to occur. So why not address how I think we as employees can go about trying to make sure that we are in a space where that doesn't become a thing. Because let's be honest, when we go into a company, we're hoping that it's providing us with a couple of different things. One, we're hoping that it's providing us a position that's going to draw upon our skills in such a way where we feel there's a good balance of being challenged, but also being able to feel successful in the sense that we're able to meet deadlines and we're able to feel the accomplishment of getting projects done and being able to share finished work with our team, our supervisors, our management, and things like that. We're looking for those things. We're hoping that when we take on a new position, it's offering us a sense of, I'm in a position now where there is growth opportunity. There are ways in which I can elevate myself from this position and move into something better in the future. We want to feel like there's opportunity for movement, because stagnation will kill the spirit. It really, really will. We don't like to feel stagnant. I've spoken about it I don't know how many times at this point on the show where, been in positions where there haven't been any means of developing. There was no new skill set developed as a result of applying myself and executing my responsibilities in roles that I've had. And that causes you to feel stagnant. And that causes you to do a couple of other things that can cause you to not seek out develop opportunities to develop your skills further, and that depends on how much the day-to-day does demand of you. Here's the thing, here's the kicker. A job that happens to not draw on your skills can still demand a lot of you emotionally and mentally, to where by the time you come home, you're kind of tapped out. And even though you are wanting to develop your skills further, because of the level of demand from the position, you just may not have the juice anymore. And so I want you to think about that. A position can be demanding of you and still not provide you opportunities to develop. And that will drive you crazy. That's driven me crazy before. So that's one of the things that we're looking for in a new job, right? We want to feel like there are opportunities for growth, that we feel like there's a way for us to move up. Because ultimately speaking, a lot of times, let's be honest, we're going into a position, especially if it's entry level into a company, and it has a good salary, but we have to also consider today's housing market. What for us is going to be a good salary, a feasible salary? Me, I live north of Charlotte, and even north of Charlotte, even in areas in my hometown where it's nowhere near the lake, we're talking about one-bedroom apartments, rental properties that are anywhere from $1,300 to $1,800 a month for a singular person for an okay-sized unit. What that typically means is that unless you're making bare minimum 50 to 55 more a year, you can't feasibly consider living in an apartment, because it's that much. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that's a thing, because again, these places in my hometown, not even anywhere near the lake, which is the big, kind of cash cow in my area, Lake Norman, areas that are not even near the lake, areas that aren't even anywhere near historic downtown or main downtown areas are again, 1,300, 1,800 a month. And it baffles me. But it also tells me that unless I were to get a position providing X amount a month, I couldn't feasibly consider living there on my own. And roommates, that's a testy thing to try to get into. So yeah, we're trying to figure out, whether or not the salary that we're coming into is going to work for us for a time. And if there are growth opportunities, ideally there are development opportunities in the salary to where, again, over time, at least, it's okay, now, cool. Now I've elevated myself a couple of different levels, and I can definitely now consider living on my own. And excuse me again. Yeah, those are the things that we're looking for. And so quiet quitting. So that occurs when we're not seeing those things. We're not in a position that's challenging us in a way that we are developing. When we are in a position, that's the other thing. So the other thing that we want to know when we're going into a position is that we want to know that we are actively participating in the operations of the company, right? So one of the points that the article writer made in that piece that I shared on Friday is that one of the reasons quiet quitting occurs is that people go through their job day to day, tackling and taking care of the responsibilities of their job, but even after so many months, so many years, they may go through every single day having no idea how what they are doing every single day contributes to the operations of the company as a whole. What good for the company does the effort that's being asked on them to give? How does it benefit? How does the company benefit from it? And when you don't know that, and when you don't know that what you're doing every single day, what's being expected of you every single day actually puts into that machine, puts into that, I was calling it hopefully an interconnected set of teams that are the operations of a company, it causes you to not see the value. And that also triggers quiet quitting. And so those are the things we want. So what do I think we can do to understand these different facets going into a position? So as far as the one that we just spoke about, the understanding how the job that we are going to get is going to feed into the company's operations and how what we will be doing on a day-to-day benefits, that's something I always try to take care of in the interview process, right? So if you have a description of the position, definitely always read through that. I think that's a given. But when it comes down to actually getting interviews and talking to either the recruiter or the hiring manager or X amount of people on a single team regarding the position, I always try to go into the interviews having my own educated guess as to the position I'm going to be talking about and how that feeds into the operations. And then, because you're going to get asked questions regarding the position, naturally, they'll ask you 100 questions about you and how your experience will feed into the position itself. But then, of course, they will ask you questions, and that's when I will approach them with my in the moment understanding of what the job is and how I believe it's supposed to be feeding into the company, and typically I'm on point with it. But if you happen to be a little off, they should happily clarify. I think at the very least, coming out of the first interview, regardless of how many interviews you end up having for a role, you should be coming out of the first interview understanding how the role operates. So for instance, a few years back, I was interviewing with a pretty big company for an account planner position, I believe it was. And it's a position I'd have never had before. and I was trying to understand if it was a sales-oriented job, like what was that entailing. Typically, salespeople are called account executives or AEs, or account managers sometimes. Usually, AE is the typical term for someone who sells services to a client. So account coordinator, I was trying to understand, okay, how does this kind of feed in? And I can't recall what my initial perception of the job was going into the first interview. But the person I spoke with happily clarified what that was. And so we were talking about, okay, so the account coordinator is post sales. So we have the account executive who makes the sale, who sells the client a certain marketing package, with whatever benefits that comes with. And so the account coordinator, it's not post sales. It's actually kind of pre-sales. My bad. I think I was interviewing for both a coordinator and a planner. So a planner, I might be wrong, but just stick with me here for a second. So, account coordinator, if I recall correctly, is the person who is post sales. So they will sometimes work with the account executive a little bit, not very much, to help get the sale done, but they're more post sales. So account coordinator will take the package that's been sold for the client it's been sold to, and they will make sure that essentially the position or the marketing package they have acquired or they've bought is properly executed. So they will work with the different teams like programming and promotions, creative, to make sure certain elements are done and created, and then that they are executed. They go out onto whatever streams the client has purchased and make sure that they are getting their airtime, their ad space, whatever it is. And then, so I went in there not quite understanding what that was at first, but then they explained to me it's post-sales. You're going to make sure that whatever is sold is done properly. And then the account planner position that I interviewed for once with the same company, they were pre-sales, not the account executive, but even pre-cold calling sometimes. And so what they did was they would coordinate between the salespeople and inventory to help determine what was available to be sold to a client, and therefore what an account executive could actually put on the table for a prospective client. So going in like that with those interviews and having or trying to have some preconceived notion about what the role was and how it feeds into the day-to-day operations, I found that very, very helpful in many previous interviews because one, it helped me to better conceptualize what I would prospectively be doing with this company if they were to hire me on. And then the other part of it is it shows a lot of good effort on your part to this recruiter, hiring manager, whoever you're talking to, that you're trying to go into any situation with their team with this understanding of what the job is. It shows them that you are working to have this understanding of how you'll fit in to the operations. That's always a bonus regarding your character, your work ethic, and what they would potentially be looking for if they were to hire you on. So go into it like that for sure. The other thing I want to put on the table for things that we can do to help keep us out of a mindset where quiet quitting becomes a thing is something that I talk about often on the show. And I really think that it's such a huge element. It should never be underestimated. And that's wanting to be super communicative, wanting to talk about any and everything. Here's the thing, and I tell this to any interviewer every single time I talk to them. And that is that I am very communicative. And I will even go, and I even say this, I say I'm communicative to the point where I'm annoying. Because I like to ask the questions. I like to ask a question multiple times because at the end of the day, I want it to be where you at least you can't say that I didn't ask the question. Because here's how I go into a lot of situations when if I'm still interviewing or if I'm in training. I try to take what's been given to me about operations, like day-to-day stuff, and I try to figure out the kind of non-common occurrences, because my luck as a person, to be very honest, my luck as an employee, those uncommon situations will be the ones that will consistently happen for me. To where the typical answer or solution that you get in training is not going to be what works out in that situation. You've got to come up with some kind of more unique solution for a situation. And that happens for me all the time. I'm not someone who attracts the typical situation. I always attract the random situation, which is stressful and annoying. But it happens, and I know that happens. So that's why I try to take the information that I'm given in training or still in an interview so that I can ask these random questions. And it's gotten me a lot of good feedback in the past where people would say, dude, this person pays a lot of attention to detail. They want to know how to handle certain things. And that's another thing that I always try to do when I go into an interview process is all questions a lot of times tend to be about when they're talking to you and they're asking you the questions, it's always going to be about your experience. And a lot of times I think when it comes to questions to ask them, sometimes we can be a little too kind of like, not objective, but I know this going into like my first set of interviews ever when I was like coming out of college or like in college. And, I would kind of be like, what are you looking for? What's the hiring manager looking for in a position? Which isn't a bad question, but I think nowadays it's kind of a blasé question, kind of like a safe question. Or I don't really know how to explain how I feel like I wasn't previously, but what I learned to do and what I learned helps me out a lot is that I try to have as many questions about the day-to-day operations as I can. Like, for instance, my first kind of interview process was back when I was in college, and it wasn't even for like a job out of college. It was for a job on the radio station. So I wanted to be the music director of App State's rock station really, really badly. And so whenever we would have days to come in and hang out, and we were kind of building up to that time frame where those big interviews would happen, I was always speaking to the current music director. I think her name was Lauren, and every single question wasn't like, so how do you enjoy it? Would I get to do this? Yada, yada, yada. It's not very bland questions like that. The questions were like, okay, so when it comes to working with this software, what's the easy part? What's the hard part? How does this software feed into the process, kind of thing. If you're not in radio, it can be kind of a complicated system that helps someone decide what music to put onto a station, to put onto the rotation. And so I would ask questions about the software, what's the hard part, what's the easy part. I asked about, the kind of the range of music and like the extremes of what kind of music I could consider to be viable for the rotation, for the format of the station. Basically just very in-deep, very involved day-to-day questions to kind of further not only the idea that I'm trying to really understand this position, but also that I want to be able to get into this position with enough knowledge about it to be able to, off the bat, be able to begin operating pretty efficiently. And knowing those things, being able to come in like that definitely helps, and it keeps you in a pretty good headspace. And then, of course, one of the things that I typically always want to make sure going into for a position is the growth opportunity. Because you want to be able to grow, you want to be able to see certain incentives available, certain goals met while you're with the company. So the ability to evolve and develop into bigger and better roles and to earn bigger and better benefits is always going to be a very big element for people. It is for me. I want to be able to grow. I want to be able to go and move. I want to feel like after 5 to 10 years in a company that I have moved around, that I have made strides, that I've gone somewhere, essentially. Even if it's in the same building, even if I've been in the same building for 10 years, I want to feel like I've gone somewhere. And those things in tandem, I believe, are what help us keep us in a mind space that where quiet quitting doesn't become a thing, where we stop kind of caring, where we stop thinking there's anything to concern ourselves regarding what we're doing and how that feeds into things, and whether or not putting forth the effort into a position is even at that point necessary. So I think aiming for those things, aiming for those conversations is what'll help keep us in the good mindset to where we're able to happily continue and understandably operate, because those things are considered and those are viable. Now, that being said, of course, that's the effort on our part. The article that I'm referencing came from the manager's perspective and what managers can do to help make sure that quiet quitting isn't a thing amongst their employees. Another point I believe from the article was that, and I'm going to try to find the article, see if I can pull that back up, because it was a pretty good article. I'm going to share it again. But one of the other points that he made was about making sure that one of the more basic things is just making sure that the employee knows what the goal of the company as a whole is. What's the company trying to do? And that kind of further that pushes the idea further of us understanding how what we do on a day-to-day feeds into the operations. So if you are working for, let's say, a commercial real estate company or a construction company, how does what you're doing feed into the point of that company's services? Understanding that basic thing helps keep us in a mindset where quiet quitting doesn't become the viable option. And not that quiet quitting is always a conscious decision. It can be an unconscious decision that develops over time, but having these factors available is what keeps us in a mindset to not begin doing that. And I think that's very, very important for us. So let's go ahead and hop into some submissions for this morning. And before we do that, if you're wondering how you can submit your question, story, or gossip to the show for discussion, there are a couple of ways. You can head on over to Reddit. We have our own community called Talk Office Gossip. From there, just go ahead and submit your story however you'd like. Or you can head on over to casualbabble.com. There is a page called Submit Your Story. Take care of it there. My admin will let you know on both platforms when your submission will be used for the next episode of the show. And if any submissions, just because of time, do not get to make it to the show, they will be included in the advice column section of the Casual Babble newsletter, which comes out monthly. So be sure you're on the mailing list for that. The sign up form is going to be on the homepage of casualbabble.com. Right below the main picture, the form says sign up and keep up. That's where you're going to take care of it. Also, wanted to let you guys know on YouTube, if you're not following already, firstly, go ahead and give that subscribe. Also, my latest vlog has dropped. It came out on Friday, if I'm correct on that. But yeah, so that's out now. Go ahead and enjoy that after the show this morning. To just kind of get the latest on what I've been doing. And yeah, let's see here. Let's go into our first submission here. Let's see. This one is titled, I have an extreme phobia of being fired. How do I conquer it? It's an unreasonable fear. Being fired scares the daylights out of me. Every time I head into work, my gut screams, I'm going to be fired. This has happened at every job I've ever had. It honestly takes over my weeks and weekends. How do you get over it? Well, firstly, what I want to suggest here, As far as the weekends part, one of my concerns for you, honestly, is learning how to unplug from work. We've talked about this before on the show. Being able to disconnect from work is one of the healthiest things you can do, because if you're not being compensated for the time, there's no need to contemplate or give the time to contemplation because you're not being compensated for it. And again, we've talked about people in the past. We've had submissions where people talked about they chose not to take their breaks, and other people who just had issues disconnecting from the job whenever they're supposed to be either on a break or at home. Learn to do that. Firstly, I do want to make sure that you are not in a constant high stress situation, because one, that's not good for your health, and two, it'll run you down. So learn to do that. Learn to disconnect from work. Secondly, is there a reason? Oh, like, I know you said it's an unreasonable fear, but is there anything that you feel is prompting it? Are you concerned about your performance? Are you concerned about your management? Is there something that's giving you a constant sense of impending doom that's causing you to feel this on a day-to-day basis? So consider those elements. Is it an element in your environment that you can control? Is it an element that you cannot control? And let's help determine that a bit better so that we can understand whether or not the fear has any legitimacy. Because if it doesn't, if it's literally just you, if you happen to also like just be super green and you're just not used to being in the workplace yet, then yeah, that's a fear that can happen. But I mean, it's also something I would suggest then you need to let go. But again, if it's also coming from a place that you can control, if there are elements in your environment that are very real, that are very much triggering these feelings about constantly worrying about being fired, then you might have to consider moving to a new position. Just because, I mean, we're on this show, we are not about sticking around with toxic work environments, whether or not it's coworker oriented or management oriented. We want people to be in positions where they feel very supported by a team, and whether or not there's fair supervision being provided as well. So determine those elements first, and I could give you better advice from there, because any number of things could be triggering that. I feel like it might be more your environment than anything else, because I think that the fear of getting fired for me typically comes from if I've made a mistake at work, and that will cause me to worry about being fired. But unless that's happened, or unless I just have a really bad environment that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, then I probably won't feel that. But yeah, give me more information for sure. Give me more context. What's your work environment like? What kind of elements are you dealing with on a day-to-day basis? And we'll go from there for sure. Okay, so the next submission is titled, Work Forcing Me to Use the Term Master Bedroom. I'm hoping you're in residential real estate. Okay, hello. I work in a marketing for a property management company in California. A couple of months ago, I brought to my boss's attention that it may be a good idea to shift our language from master bedroom to primary bedroom or something similar, because over the past few years, this has become an industry standard, and it feels like we are one of the last to stay up on this. It doesn't take much thinking to realize why master bedroom is a pretty offensive term. Feels like an easy fix. My boss agreed, and I began using the term in social media posts, etc. A couple of weeks ago, my boss came up to me and said that the owners of the company noticed that I began using the word primary, and they would like me to stop because they like to stay neutral in political situations. Do they think primary bedroom as in like primary elections? Okay. My blood was boiling, and no part of this feels political to me. I am wondering if there's any kind of discrimination or rights that I have in this situation, as I now feel highly uncomfortable using the phrase in my everyday work. To me, the term feels blatantly racist and or sexist. Any input or help would be appreciated. Thank you so much. So I guess a good question is, does the California MLS use the term master bedroom for property listings? Consistent messaging is very important in marketing. But granted, if the new standard is to use the word primary, you're doing your job as a marketing specialist in suggesting the change of language to keep up with current trends. I would definitely say, and bring it up as well. I would see if you can have them clarify what they mean by political situations, because clearly primary, I don't think this takes a lot of contemplation, but clearly primary bedroom has nothing to do with like primary elections or things like that. And I might be totally missing the bullet on that in the sense of that's what they're saying in regards to, because they mentioned political situations. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, but I would see if you can get some clarification on that and bring it up to them about why the change. Tell them that you're there because you're supposed to be contemplating the newest trends, and if that means there's a necessary alteration in language, then that's something that you're going to pitch, and there was a reason, and that's the reason why your manager, your boss, thought it was a good idea. See if you can get that information from them, and clarify why that's been done. I get why the change of master bedrooms, yeah, that does have some bad context to it for sure. I wouldn't have thought about that a couple years ago, but I have recently worked for commercial real estate and overseeing their communications, so I get it. Excuse me. But yeah, see if you can acquire some clarification on that, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially again if the suggestion that you made, which was approved by your management, fits in with the contemporary trends of residential or commercial real estate. Yeah, I would go for that. Make sure you get the clarification. Looking for our next submission this morning. Here we go. So let's see here. My company hired a new manager who used to be a coworker from another company. We didn't get along back in 2016. How should I protect myself from being treated differently and wrongfully fired? So is this the kind of... how bad was your relationship back in 2016? What would prompt you to think that this person coming in as a manager would instantaneously put your position in jeopardy? I would definitely, if you started noticing there was any sudden shift in the feedback you're getting, especially if you're a productive employee and you typically don't get any negative feedback because you know how to put in the effort and you're detail oriented, then I would bring up to whoever hired them, hey, there's this connection between us from the past. I'm noticing that I'm getting a lot more of this negative feedback, which I typically don't get. And the numbers that I have regarding my efficiency and my efficacy and how that has been productive don't correlate with the sudden feedback I'm getting from this person that I have this connection with. But again, yeah, can you clarify what within that previous relationship would cause you to think that this person now being on the team is kind of an instantaneous threat? Because otherwise, I would say just kind of play it by ear and just see what happens with you. I wouldn't jump the gun, for sure. I wouldn't jump the gun, which is an easy thing for us to do because we can easily determine threats sometimes, but that's also a lot of times based off of older information or out of information that's no longer relevant. So yeah, especially if you haven't kept in contact with this person since 2016 when you were last in the same work environment, that may have no more relevance at this point. So yeah, if there are any particular elements that are causing you to have this concern, definitely share that. Let's see here. Next question is being a lead worth the stress? I might have an option to be a lead in a small animation studio. I am just worried about the stress level. I have been a lead in the past, but this is a new place and it's only working from home. I find a lot of the production who planned and structured at my work just don't care for my ideas or solutions. They have already messed up a handful of projects because of their incompetence, but no one has gotten in trouble. My worry is if I become a lead, they will not listen to me and just pass their work to me. Right now, I only have to worry about what I am doing and the project I am on. My friends/team are struggling with other projects. I'd say with this, is the pay worth it? Honestly, if you have a team that's not gonna communicate with you, it's not gonna work with you, it may not be worth it, honestly. Especially if it's a smaller studio, smaller projects, is the compensation worth it? And can you use that foothold going into this project or this studio as a way to help kind of restructure the team and how they interact with different levels of coordination? And can that prove to be more productive in the future? Ask those questions about the position. If no to any of those, really, I'd say move on. Keep whatever you're already doing and just wait for something else to come along. For sure. Because a team that's not going to listen to you, especially if you're the lead, probably not worth the time, to be very honest. Let's see here. Question is, can I be fired from dating a coworker's ex? I'm in California. I don't believe so. That seems irrelevant. Does the coworker's ex also work for the company? All right, so hello. I believe there is a chance I may be fired on Monday from my job. I've been in a relationship with a girl for over 2 years now. Come to find out, she is an ex-girlfriend of one of my coworkers who is best friends with my boss. The coworker knows about it and is furious with me. I denied it because I want to keep my work and private life separate. Well, ever since I've denied it, my boss makes jokes about it after I've told him I'm uncomfortable, uses the story to make his business partners laugh, even has a steal your girl jar in the office he puts money into whenever he talks about the situation, which is very distasteful for your boss, by the way. Not professional, not mature. This weekend, a coworker that is aware I have denied the claim met my sister at her workplace, and she divulged that I am indeed in a relationship with my coworker's ex. I have issues here. I have a strong feeling I will be retaliated against, even possibly fired, although my boss is very wealthy and can hire a lawyer if I wanted to do anything about it. He also could very well lie and make up a reason for firing me other than this situation, but he is absolutely the type of person to do that. What can I even do? I am in California, and multiple times I have asked him to drop the subject with no avail. And am I pretty much out of luck because I'm at an at-will state? Any advice or help is appreciated. Firstly, have a convo with your sister. And what is this coworker of yours doing meeting with your sister? Are you on good terms with your sister? Like, are you in a position with your sister where you can be like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Have that convo for sure. You can definitely have that convo without getting in trouble. This is a weird situation, honestly, and the ex doesn't even here's the thing. This person's your ex, dude. This person's your ex. Why are you mad? Are you an ex? You guys split up for a reason. What's the issue there? Now, unfortunately, California is an at-will state. That means you can be fired for any reason except for being a member of a protected class or participating in a legally protected activity. So that puts you in a tough spot for sure. And that means your employer would not even have to hire an attorney. Unfortunately, it sucks. And I think that the way this is being handled by your team is incredibly immature, unprofessional. Your boss definitely needs to rework the way in which they are interacting with their people, because again, very unseemly, very distasteful. And I would definitely, if there's an option there, I would just be like, look, find another job. I can't believe how frustrating that is. I can't imagine being in that situation myself. honestly, yeah, that's a tough call for sure. At the very least, for me, hear it from me, and you can tell them BC Babble said this to your manager: grow up. 100% grow up. That is not a way that I think people in upper positions should conduct themselves when it comes to things that are not even relevant in the workplace. This is, and you're doing the right things here. You're keeping your work life and your personal life separate. This person that you're dating doesn't even work for the company, so it's not like there's any kind of fraternization laws or rules being broken here. Granted, the way in which people are handling the situation, the way that they are operating in the system would suggest to me that there is no kind of rule against fraternization with this company. It might be a kind of a situation where you have to take the L and just get out of there, and find a better opportunity. That is sucks. And California, unfortunately, is an at-will state. So that's a tough thing. But let us know, give us an update, what has happened. Because again, talk to your sister. It's one thing for a coworker what made the coworker decide that they could just show up to your sister's place of work? Is my other question. Because that just seems really weird. That seems really, really weird. Like they felt they could just go to your sister's place of work. How do they even know where she works? These are other questions I'd want to have answered quickly, because it sounds like you need to have an impromptu convo with your sister. That to me, would not be letting that slide. Absolutely not. Let's see here. Let's see here. Another submission here. We have it's labeled working outside hours. I just got some emails from the manager asking to make some documents. I don't know what deadlines they have. This happens some weekends that he gives me some work. I usually don't do it because I'm busy doing my personal things and planning. How do you guys handle work after hours? I don't do it. Very honestly. If my work day is from 7:30 to 4:30, that's when I'll work. If my work day is from 8:30 to 5:30, that's when I'll work. If my work day is from 8 to 5, that's when I'll work. Again, if you're not being compensated for it, don't do it. I mean, it's just because you receive the emails from the manager on the weekend does not necessarily mean you have to do it right then and there. Especially if your position does not involve weekend time, and it sounds like you've received these on the weekends. Don't do it. 100%. Wait till Monday. Let that be the first thing on Monday that you do, and then that's it. Yeah. I just wouldn't do it. I'd wait till Monday if it was the weekend. Hands down. Let's see here. The next submission is a question. Fulfilling work that doesn't suck my soul dry. Ooh, that is the constant goal. So in my current job, I've started to feel worn out. I feel that work in general because eventually depresses me, and I get burnt out and disappear for a few days. In my current work, I pulled a no-call, no-show the other day because I couldn't take it anymore. I get yelled at something awful when I mess something up. It's far away from where I live, and I don't make enough to get a car or even a bike or electric scooter to move around more easily and get some more sleep at night. I've been either in retail or blue-collar jobs because I haven't finished college yet. But what can be a fulfilling, well-paying work that doesn't make me feel burnt out and depressed? It depends on what you like to do and what your skill sets are. Just because you haven't finished college yet does not mean you're out of the loop for having a job that's outside of retail or other blue-collar jobs. Consider what your skill set is, what you've done in the past, and what that could potentially open the doors to. Now, a lot of companies, especially depending on the types of industries, do request a degree. So I'd also ask you, what is your time frame to finishing your jobs? Is this a position where you are in? Is this helping to pay for school? Is this, are you a student? Is this kind of a student job, or what's the full situation? I can probably give you a bit more advice from that, but take a day especially if you're on an off day, and consider your skills. What can you do? What does that look like? And consider, either with a friend or a coworker or a family member overlooking your skill set, what potential doors can that look into? And I wonder if there's a website somewhere that can, like, you input your, oh, okay, there we go. So go on to, like, if you haven't yet, go on to like Indeed, go on to LinkedIn and submit your skill set there. And those platforms will pull up different positions that are looking for your skill set. And you might realize that there are a lot of other options available to you that you simply hadn't considered before. So do that. Set up an Indeed profile, set up a LinkedIn profile, even a Glassdoor profile, and list your skills and see what positions they come up with. They'll either give you like an alert saying, oh, hey, your skill set matches with this job, or you'll like give it a day or whatnot, log back in the next day, and just say search jobs. It'll give you a plethora of jobs that are looking for your skill set. Do that for sure. All right. Thank you so much for joining me this morning on Casual Babble. I really appreciate it. Again, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell on YouTube. Give us a follow if you're listening on Podbean. And this show will be available immediately for those of you on YouTube. So if you didn't catch the show, or if you are coming to the show late, fear not. You'll be able to hop right back on and enjoy the show in its entirety momentarily. Additionally, if you're looking to support the channel, do not forget to check out the what are they called? The Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links. I'll put those in the comments here momentarily. Those will also be in the description of the video once the live is over on YouTube, so check those out as well. There are 3 tiers on the Patreon. You'll get early access to certain kinds of content, as well as you'll be acknowledged visually as an awesome supporter in different medias. And then Buy Me a Coffee, base donation there is $2 per donation, so go ahead and do that. And yeah, support the channel that way. Otherwise, head on over to TikTok, share the live, share the updates, and I will see you guys